Before we dive in, tell us your city, country, and time in the comments. These HFY stories reach every corner of the planet, and we love knowing where you're tuning in from as humanity flips the galaxy upside down. Now, buckle up, because this isn't just another Starship tale. This is how one drive, one human crew, and one bad idea changed the galaxy forever. The Nomad's Edge was barely more than a Corvette. 60 meters of reinforced hull, a mismatched array of salvaged weapons, and a reactor that had been redlined so many times its housing was permanently scorched black. To most factions, it looked like the kind of ship that pirates scavenged or smugglers abandoned when the engines finally quit. But on this day, in the void between the Threxian corridor and the galactic trade lanes, the Nomad's Edge carried something no other ship had ever possessed: the prototype blink drive. It wasn't human tech, it wasn't even Terran approved. The blink drive was designed by the Drail Consortium, an alliance of avian and crystalline species who prided themselves on stable innovation. In their hands, the drive was supposed to make freighters jump safely across sectors, cutting weeks into hours, with no danger, no chaos. In human hands, stability was optional. Cass Holt, chief engineer, crouched beneath the humming core of the drive, her gloves sparking as she spliced yet another jury-rigged power relay into the alien conduits. The drive wasn't meant to sit in a human vessel. The energy bleed alone was enough to fry most Terran ship systems. But Cass had been a fixer for half her life, the kind of person who could make a fusion reactor run on scrap metal and spit. Vega Ross, the ship's pilot, leaned casually in the doorway, his flight suit unzipped to the waist. He held a ration packet in one hand, eating as if they weren't about to test a device that could tear a hole through reality. "You sure about this?" Vega asked, his voice as nonchalant as if he were asking about the weather on Earth. Cass didn't look up, not even a little. "But that's why it'll work." Vega smirked. "You sound like every Terran engineer I've ever met right before something explodes." Cass snapped the last relay into place. The core pulsed, a bright blue-white glow flooding the cramped engineering bay. Explosions are just proof of progress. The blink drive hummed to life, its energy rippling across the Nomad's Edge like a living heartbeat. Outside, the black expanse of space seemed to shimmer, faint cracks of light forming like spiderwebs against the void. The jump point was opening. Vega slid into the pilot's chair on the bridge, hands gliding over the mismatched human and alien controls. The HUD flickered, struggling to interpret what the blink drive was doing to their trajectory. "All right, Cass," he said, voice steady despite the chaos building around them. "How far are we jumping?" Cass strapped into the engineering console, double-checking the stabilizers. "If I didn't screw up, 20 light years. If I did, nowhere. Or everywhere, maybe both." Vega grinned. "My kind of odds." He punched the drive activation. The first jump was nothing like the serene, tunnel-like FTL corridors other species used. The Nomad's Edge didn't ease into hyperspace, it slammed through it. The entire ship bucked like a living beast, the hull screaming as the blink drive folded space violently around it. The stars outside warped, streaking into jagged fractures of light instead of smooth lines. Vega gritted his teeth, fighting to keep the ship level. Cass barked readings over the comms, her voice steady even as alarms blared. "Stabilizers at 60, core flux peaking. Hold it steady, I can bleed the excess." "Bleed it where?" Vega snapped, his hands flying over the controls. Cass's fingers danced over the alien conduit display, into the hull plating. "Unless you want the drive to implode." "Won't that?" The ship lurched hard to port. Vega cut himself off and gripped the yoke. "Never mind. Do it." Cass rerouted the energy. The Nomad's Edge howled as the hull glowed red-hot, venting excess power into space like a comet. For a brief, terrifying moment, the Corvette looked like it was on fire. And then, the jump snapped. The stars returned. Not where they'd been, not where they'd aimed, but somewhere else entirely. The HUD scrambled before finally spitting out coordinates. Vega blinked. "We just jumped 38 light years." In one pulse, Cass exhaled, leaning against the console, and the drive didn't tear us apart. The satisfaction lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then the proximity alarm screamed. 3 Drael patrol frigates, sleek, crystalline ships bristling with blue energy lances, had been caught in their wake. The unstable blink field had ripped them out of transit, scattering their formations. One frigate's hull was already fracturing, shards of crystal peeling away into the void. Another spun helplessly, its engines dead. Vega whistled low. We just broke half a Drael squad by accident. Cass adjusted the blink drive's power flow, her expression grim. And now they know exactly who stole their prototype. The comms crackled with a chorus of distorted alien voices, the Drael captains, their tones sharp and glassy, echoing through the Nomad's edge. Terran vessel, you have stolen sacred consortium property. Power down your engines and prepare for retrieval. Non-compliance will result in your disintegration. Vega muted the channel, turning to Cass. So plan. Cass checked the drive readings. The core's glow had dimmed, cycling through pulses as it cooled. Plan is, don't die before the drive resets. The frigate's powered weapons, blue lances of energy lit the void, converging on the Nomad's edge. Vega tightened his grip on the control. Guess we get to find out how dangerous this thing really is. He grinned. Hold on, Cass. And with a flick of his wrist, he primed the blink drive again. Despite every warning light screaming at him not to, the second jump wasn't a jump, not in the traditional sense. Instead of tearing across light years, Vega triggered a micro blink, a fraction of a second shift in space, barely a few kilometers. But in combat, a few kilometers was enough. The Nomad's edge vanished from the Drael targeting locks, reappearing inside their formation. The frigates scrambled, their lances swinging wildly, some firing on each other in the chaos. Cass gripped the console, her voice tight but controlled. You do realize this thing was not designed for combat jumps, right? Vega's grin widened as he threw the ship into a hard spin, dodging stray fire. Then it's about time someone showed the galaxy what humans can do with it. The blink drive pulsed again, blue-white cracks forming in space, as the Nomad's edge prepared another impossible shift. The Drael frigates, once so confident, were already scattering, their comms filled with sharp, panicked tones. Cass glanced at the drive core, its glow now thrumming like a heartbeat. Vega, yeah? She smirked faintly. I think we just made history. The drive flared, the Nomad's edge blinked, and the galaxy's first lesson began. The Nomad's edge drifted silently in the aftermath of chaos. What had started as a stolen prototype run had turned into a full-scale incident. 3 Drael frigates crippled, their crews broadcasting distress signals across the Threxian corridor. The corvette's stolen blink drive had done more damage in minutes than some fleets did in days. For Cass Holt and Vega Ross, the implications were clear. The Drael consortium wouldn't just come for their drive, they'd come for them. Cass leaned over the engineering console, her gloves slick with coolant from manually rerouting power conduits. The blink drive pulsed faintly, still cooling from the violent double blink. Its core wasn't designed for rapid cycling, but Cass had forced it anyway, bleeding excess energy into every spare conduit in the ship. We can't keep doing that, she muttered, more to herself than to Vega. One more uncontrolled blink, and this thing's going to tear us apart from the inside. Vega, lounging in the pilot's chair, gave her a crooked grin. Correction, it'll tear us apart. The ship will probably survive. In a million little pieces. Cass shot him a glare. Do you ever take anything seriously? Sure, Vega said, swiveling the chair toward her. I take survival seriously. And I'm thinking the only way we survive is to keep doing exactly what we're doing until no one's left to chase us. Cass tapped a readout, bringing up a map of the nearby sectors. The red pings were spreading fast, not just Drael signatures now, but a mix of other factions too. She recognized the jagged glyphs of Voran scout ships and the curved identifiers of the Kalari Syndicate. Word had spread. They all want the blink drive, Cass said flatly. And they'll burn through each other if it means getting it. Vega leaned forward, tapping one of the red pings. Then let's make them burn. The first test came hours later. The Nomad's edge was cruising through the shadow of a fractured asteroid field when the Voran ambushed them. Three needle-shaped corvettes, their engines glowing with the eerie green light of gravitic projectors. Voran ships didn't use standard weapons. They used gravity itself, pinning targets in space before crushing them like tin cans. Cass felt the pull first, her console shuddering as the gravitic field latched onto the edge. Voran projectors locking us down. If they hold us, the blink drive won't cycle. Vega's fingers danced across the flight controls, his expression calm. How long until the drive charges? 40 seconds. Cass said, her hands flying over the engineering panel. But they'll crush us in 20. Vega grinned. Guess we'll just blink early. He yanked the yoke hard, pitching the Nomad's edge nose first toward the nearest Voran corvette. Cass swore, grabbing the console as the ship's hull groaned under the gravitic strain. Are you insane? She shouted over the alarms. Probably, Vega said. But that's why I'm still alive. He slammed his palm against the manual blink control. The drive pulsed too soon, too hot, its core screaming in protest as it folded space in a stuttering burst. The Nomad's edge vanished from the Voran gravitic lock and reappeared inside the asteroid field, slamming through a cluster of shattered rock. The corvette's shields flared as debris bounced harmlessly off the hull. Behind them, the Voran corvettes scrambled to reacquire their target, but the edge was already charging another blink. Cass's voice was tight as she rerouted power from the aft shields. Every time we push it like this, we're one bad calculation away from blinking into an asteroid instead of around it. Vega's grin widened. Yeah, but can you imagine the look on their faces if we blink through one and keep going? Cass didn't bother replying. She just locked down the stabilizers and prepared for the next jump. The Nomad's edge began using the blink drive in ways its creators never intended. Instead of long-range travel, Vega and Cass weaponized it for micro-jumps, vanishing between volleys of plasma fire, reappearing behind enemy formations, even slipping inside shield perimeters for point-blank strikes. Each jump left a telltale distortion in space, a jagged blue-white crack that hung in the void for seconds before collapsing. To every pursuing faction, those cracks became a harbinger of chaos. Entire flotillas scattered the moment they saw one. The Drael were furious. The Voran were terrified. And the Kalari Syndicate, they wanted to hire Vega and Cass to teach them how to weaponize the drive. For the humans aboard the Nomad's edge, it was just another Tuesday. By the fourth encounter, even Cass, usually the cautious one, had started to lean into the chaos. She'd figured out how to sync the blink drive's energy bleed with their weapons, overloading their railguns so each shot carried a fraction of folded space. The result wasn't just a projectile, it was a rip in reality that shattered shields like glass. Vega piloted with reckless precision, each micro-jump timed to the millisecond, his instincts sharper than any targeting computer. The alien factions started calling him the Phantom Pilot, because by the time they saw where he was, it was already too late. On the bridge, after their latest escape from a Kalari pursuit wing, Cass leaned back against the console, her eyes on the glowing blink core. You realize every council in the galaxy is going to blacklist us for this, right? The Drael, the Voran, even the humans if they find out. Vega chuckled, leaning back in the pilot's chair. Good, if everyone's mad at us, it means we're doing something right. Cass arched a brow. You really think this is sustainable? One ship, one drive against half the galaxy. Vega's grin faded into something colder, sharper. No, but it's survivable. And survivable is enough, for now. The blink drive pulsed again, its glow deepening, almost alive. And as the Nomad's edge prepared for another impossible jump, every pursuing faction received the same fragmented transmission, a distorted voice threaded with static, but unmistakably human. Keep chasing. Every blink makes us harder to catch. Every blink makes us better. The message repeated once. Then the Nomad's edge vanished into a jagged fracture of light. The Nomad's edge no longer felt like a ship. It felt like a rumor. Every time it blinked, every time space fractured in a jagged burst of blue-white light, another story was born in the outer systems. Some said the Terran ship could phase through stars. Others swore it could split enemy fleets in two by folding space around them. The truth was simpler, but far more terrifying. Cass Holt and Vega Ross weren't just surviving anymore, they were experimenting. The latest test began in the Kelran Rift, a place most captains avoided entirely. The rift wasn't empty space, it was a graveyard of broken physics, a stretch of stars warped by ancient stellar detonations. Gravitational eddies twisted sensor readings into nonsense, and rogue asteroids zipped along impossible trajectories. Perfect for two humans trying to see just how far they could push stolen tech. Cass stood in the engineering bay, sweat dripping down her brow as she monitored the blink drive's core. Its glow was no longer the steady crystalline pulse it had been when the Drail designed it. Now it throbbed irregularly, almost like a living thing struggling to breathe. Every modification she and Vega had made had pushed it further from stability, but closer to power. "We're already past the safety threshold," she muttered into the comms. "The next chain blink could tear a hole in us, the drive or reality itself." Vega's voice came back from the bridge, casual as ever. "Good. Let's make sure we're not on the list of things it tears apart." Cass rolled her eyes but didn't argue. They'd crossed the point of no return weeks ago, back when they'd first realized the drive could be used for something far more devastating than mere travel. Chain blinking. Normally, the blink drive folded space once, then stabilized before re-engaging. It was a safeguard, not just for the ship, but for the surrounding fabric of reality. Cass had bypassed those safeties, rerouting the core through a cascading feedback loop. Instead of one blink, the Nomad's edge could now stutter through multiple jumps in rapid succession, appearing and vanishing dozens of times within seconds. Each stutter left scars in space, jagged rifts of glowing energy that destabilized anything nearby, including enemy fleets. The rift's calm didn't last long. Kelran had become a hunting ground for every faction chasing the edge, and today, they all arrived at once. A Vorin gravitic dreadnought, 2 Kalari syndicate carriers, and worst of all, a Drail capital ship, the Cryon Veil, a vessel larger than some moons, bristling with energy lances capable of vaporizing entire cities. Their combined comms cut through the rift, a chorus of threats and demands in multiple languages. But only one transmission came through in trade, sharp and clear: "Terran thieves. Power down and surrender the blink drive. Do so, and your end will be swift." Cass glanced at the tactical feed, which showed 3 fleets converging on their position. The Nomad's edge was a speck compared to them, a single corvette against hundreds of warships. "This is suicide," she said, more to herself than to Vega. "Absolute glorious suicide." Vega's voice came back over comms, calm and razor sharp. "Not if we blink first." The blink drive's core flared, bathing the engineering bay in blinding light. Cass's hands flew across the controls, stabilizing the cascading loops as the core's pulse accelerated. Every system on the edge dimmed, rerouted to feed the hungry drive. The hull groaned as space around them began to ripple. 3, 2, Cass muttered. "Engage." The Nomad's edge vanished. To the pursuing fleets, what followed didn't look like travel. It looked like a nightmare. The corvette didn't jump away in a clean arc of light. Instead, it blinked in and out of existence across the rift, leaving jagged cracks of glowing energy that pulsed like open wounds in space. Each blink destabilized the gravitational eddies, sending asteroids spinning wildly into the Vorin dreadnought's flank. The Kalari carriers tried to recalibrate their shields, but the blink drive scars bled through, collapsing energy barriers as if they weren't even there. And the Cryon Veil, that towering Drail flagship, found itself caught at the center of the chaos. Every blink of the Nomad's edge dragged the capital ship deeper into the rift's unstable fields, its hull groaning, as if the void itself was trying to crush it. On the bridge, Vega piloted with surgical precision, his fingers gliding over the controls like a pianist. The ship stuttered forward, back and sideways, never long enough in one spot for targeting locks to hold. Cass's voice came through the comms, tight but focused. "Hull integrity at 40%. We can't sustain this much longer." Vega's jaw tightened. "Then let's make it count." He threw the Nomad's edge into one final chain, a series of 12 rapid blinks, each one dragging them closer to the Cryon Veil's vulnerable engine array. With each blink, Cass overloaded their railguns, sinking their fire with the spatial distortions. The result was catastrophic. The Drael flagship's engines fractured under the stress, entire sections of its hull imploding as the rift swallowed it. The Vorin and Kalari forces scattered instantly, their comms filled with chaos. None of them wanted to be next. When the Nomad's edge finally stabilized, the rift was quiet again. Asteroids drifted lazily. The stars shimmered in the distance, as if nothing had happened. Cass slumped against the console, her gloves scorched, her breath ragged. We just destroyed a capital ship with a freighter's worth of guns and a drive that shouldn't even exist. Vega leaned back in the pilot's chair, his expression calm but his hands trembling faintly from the strain. Correction, we destroyed 3 fleets' morale. The Veil was just a bonus. Cass exhaled, glancing at the drive core. Its glow had dimmed to a faint pulse, almost like it was sleeping. This thing isn't going to last much longer. Every time we push it, we get closer to tearing ourselves apart. Vega's grin returned, tired, but unshaken. Then we just have to make sure we leave a story big enough to scare them before it kills us. Within hours, the Rift incident spread across the galactic networks. Alien analysts and council members replayed fractured sensor logs, watching the Nomad's edge appear and vanish, carving fleets apart with a drive meant for peaceful transport. And with every retelling, one phrase became universal among the factions: never let a Terran near a blink drive. Before we close this story, tell us in the comments what city and country are you watching from, and what time is it right now. Now buckle up, because this is the moment the Nomad's edge stopped being a ship and became a legend. The rift had gone quiet, but quiet never lasted long in the outer lanes. Word of the Cryon Veil's destruction had spread faster than the wreckage. For Cass Holt and Vega Ross, that meant one thing: the galaxy's heavy hitters weren't just sending hunters anymore, they were sending executioners. The ambush came 3 days later, at the edge of the Karish expanse, a barren stretch of stars where comms faded and even nav buoys avoided. The perfect place for someone to disappear, permanently. 3 fleets converged at once. Drael war cruisers, each one glowing with precision-cut crystal armor. Kalari destroyers, their curved hulls bristling with pulse cannons. And a Vorin gravitic webship, a rare vessel capable of locking entire sectors of space in place like a spider spinning a trap. They didn't bother with warnings this time. The moment the Nomad's edge came into range, the trap snapped shut. Gravitic tethers locked onto the corvette, dragging it into a dead stop. Energy lances and pulse batteries charged in unison, lighting up the void. Cass glanced at the drive core. Its glow was faint, pulsing irregularly. The chain blinks from the rift had pushed it to the edge of burnout. It can't handle another cascade, she said, her voice clipped. We do this wrong, we're not just dead, we're gone. Like, erased. Vega's hands tightened on the yoke, his jaw set. Then we do it right. For the first time since they'd stolen the blink drive, there was no grin on Vega's face, no casual sarcasm, just focus. The kind that turned a Terran pilot into something more dangerous than any weapon. Cass, he said, voice low, give me everything. Shields, life support, even the damn lights. Feed it all into the drive. Cass's eyes flicked to the core, then to Vega. If I do that, the drive will overload. It won't shut off. That's the point, Vega said. We don't need a jump. We need a storm. The blink drive roared to life, brighter and louder than it ever had before. Blue-white arcs of energy danced along the walls of the engineering bay, the air thick with ozone. The entire Nomad's edge shuddered, as if space itself was trying to shake the ship apart. Cass's fingers blurred over the controls, rerouting every last watt into the core. The ship's systems went dark one by one. Lights, comms, even artificial gravity. Only the drive remained, its pulse accelerating until it was no longer a beat, but a scream. Vega, Cass shouted, bracing herself as the deck tilted. If this goes wrong, it won't. Vega cut her off. His hands gripped the controls like they were part of him. Hold on. The blink drive detonated, not as a weapon, but as a chain of dozens of rapid jumps. The Nomad's edge became a streak of fractured light, vanishing and reappearing faster than the eye could track. Each blink tore open jagged cracks in the void, destabilizing the gravitic web that held them. The Voran webship's anchors snapped one by one, gravitational fields imploding. The sudden collapse flung Kalari destroyers into each other, their curved hulls shearing apart in slow, silent collisions. Drael war cruisers, precise and controlled, found their systems scrambled as the fractures bled into their navigational cores, sending them spinning. From the outside, it didn't look like a battle. It looked like a storm. A storm of light and distortion tearing through fleets that had come expecting an easy kill. Inside the Nomad's edge, it felt like riding a dying god. Cass clung to the console as the drive howled, her readings cycling between impossible numbers. Every blink bent the ship further, the hull groaning with each tear in reality. She could feel the core's instability like a physical weight in her chest. "We can't hold this," she yelled over the roar. "The core's going to..." Vega's voice was calm, steady. "Not before we make sure no one ever tries this again." He yanked the controls, forcing the edge into a final stutter. The blink drive flared so brightly it drowned out the stars, the ship vanishing into a chain of rapid-fire jumps that stretched across the expanse like a burning scar. When the light faded, the Nomad's edge was gone. The three fleets were left adrift, dozens of ships shattered or disabled, their crews silent as they floated among the fractures in space the blink drive had left behind. None dared follow, none even sent pursuit drones, because in the wake of that storm, one truth became undeniable. The blink drive wasn't a tool. In human hands, it was a myth. 2 weeks later, a transmission echoed across the galactic network, untraceable, origin unknown. It carried no threats, no demands, just a simple statement, spoken in calm Terran trade: never chase what you can't catch, and never ever give humans a blink drive. The Nomad's edge, no one knows where it went. Some say it blinked so far it left the galaxy entirely. Others swear it still prowls the outer lanes, waiting for the next arrogant fleet to test it. But every captain, every council, and every mercenary who's heard the stories agrees on one thing. The day the Nomad's edge vanished was the day the galaxy learned a lesson it will never forget. If this HFY story had you hooked, tell us your city, country, and time in the comments, and share it with someone who loves watching humanity turn stolen tech into a legend.